check you can see the slides, all right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Oh, it's in presenter view. Can you see?
Yeah, we're just in I hate when it does that.
No. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Brilliant.
Cool. I'll just dive in.
Yeah, dive
Um,
in.
Jane, you've heard this before, but let me know if you've got any questions. Thank you for inviting me back. Thanks, Thomas, for hosting today. I'm going to talk to you this evening about LinkedIn. We are recording. I'm happy to send you the slide deck as well if you just want a copy of the PowerPoint slides so that you can look at them later. I'll just do a brief intro to me first before I tell you exactly what I'm going to talk about in terms of LinkedIn, in case you're not quite sure who is speaking to you this evening. I am a marketer. I've been a marketer for over 20 years now. I've worked in advertising agencies as an account manager. I've worked client side in-house as a marketing manager, and I've been running my own consultancy business for nearly 10 years now. This year, my own consultancy business, which is just me. And I have a great mix of work in that I work directly with clients, supporting them. Right now, I'm working with a university in a very different part of the country to where you are. I'm working with manufacturers, law firms, household cleaning products, primarily social media, because that has become my specialism. But I would say that I'm a generalist as a marketer. I'm chartered, I'm a fellow, I've worked with lots of different clients, but social media is kind of my sweet spot and what I enjoy, to the point that I've written a book on the topic. It's called Relax, It's Only Social Media. And what I'm sharing with you tonight in terms of LinkedIn, but anything that you ever see, if you do follow me on any accounts, is all from kind of personal experience, really. But I do work directly with LinkedIn. I am one of their online learning course instructors, and I'll talk about that shortly. I'm also accredited as one of the trainers for Facebook and Instagram, and a coach for Google as well. So hopefully lots of variety and background that I can bring to this session for you. And please do feel free to ask me any questions at the end. It doesn't just have to be LinkedIn. If you've got any marketing questions, always happy to take those as well. I'm treating this session as really kind of a bit of a back to basics with LinkedIn. I will do an intro into what it's all about, giving you some key tips on your LinkedIn profile, whether you have one set up already or whether you need to start and create a LinkedIn profile for you. It's going to be really important throughout your career to have this. And then really, wherever you're at in your studies and when you're going into the world of work, some job tips as well, which will hopefully be useful to you at some point. So to dive in with a background to LinkedIn, it's been around a while. It's been around longer than some of the other social media platforms. It was officially launched in 2003. It had a mission when it started, and it hasn't changed since 2003, about connecting the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. Also a vision that, again, has been around since 2003. They haven't changed it. Is about creating economic opportunity for professionals as well. Now, there is a bit of a preconception and an understanding that LinkedIn is primarily about getting a job. And you will find in the business world that many people will set up a LinkedIn profile when they're looking for a job, when they need another job. And very often they set it up as they create their CV and then they cut and paste it into LinkedIn. Whereas actually, I would argue that LinkedIn is more important to keep up to date and to keep relevant all the time. You never know when you might need it in your career, and not just for getting a job, but for new suppliers, new partners, new connections, things like that. Keep it up to date, but also a CV is quite a historical statement of what you have done or what you have studied or what your work experience is. I would say LinkedIn always needs to be ready for your next step, for what you want to be found for or what you want to be doing next. So that's kind of the difference, and why actually your LinkedIn profile shouldn't just be a cut and paste. It needs to be kind of very forward focused for what you want to be doing next and in the future and what you want people to find you for as well. So that's the background. Actually, it's a while ago now, but Microsoft purchased LinkedIn at the end of 2016. Quite a while ago now, but they're still run as very separate businesses, but they do have a common mission around people and organizations and this connecting idea. This is what it's really all about. As I've kind of already hinted, there are lots of benefits for using LinkedIn. The bottom one, jobs, absolutely, and this is going to be key for you. But for me, how I'm using LinkedIn on a day-to-day basis is I see it as a tool, an amazing tool that I'll come on to a second, the differences, but you can use most of this for free. It's a tool, you can use it on the desktop or on a mobile. Personally, I prefer the desktop. It has some slightly different functionality to it than a mobile, but it's fine if that's what you're used to. But for me, it's a great place to kind of research and gather insights. And by insights, I just mean what's going on in the business world, what are companies doing, what are people doing, what are they talking about, what's the business news of the day. So if you're doing anything that's business related and you want to know what's going on, LinkedIn for me is the place that I find out what people are talking about. And that's why it's a networking tool. It is where, maybe, hopefully we will all connect afterwards. It's that kind of virtual business card exchange. We've kind of met each other in this virtual world that we're in. Let's connect, let's stay in touch. I may be able to help you with your studies one day. I may be doing some research and be able to ask you your opinions on it. We rely on our networks in business so much. I can't overemphasize to you how important contacts are for you. When I set up my consultancy business almost 10 years ago, my first new client came from a recommendation by the person that was my manager in my placement year 15 years earlier. I kept in touch with her. She knew what I was doing, what I was always working on, that I was setting up my own business. And that's how I got my first client. And that is pretty much how I've got every client for my business in the last 10 years, through networking and through referrals. Touch wood, I've never had to do any cold pitching, any business development work as such, any advertising. It's always through networks and recommendations that I get my clients. And that's a hugely valuable tool to stay in front of people, stay visible, let people know what you're doing and when you're available and perhaps when you're a bit busier. This is your online presence. That's why it's more than a CV. It supports your CV, but there is well over 700 million people on LinkedIn right now. So it's a huge database of opportunities and people that you can tap into. And I would say from my experience and the clients I work with, the people that are active on LinkedIn are absolutely ready and willing to respond to your messages and your approaches and your connections. That's why they're on there, to network. So if I can give you just some of those tools this evening, hopefully it will help in what you're doing. There are different levels of accounts with LinkedIn. In fact, everything I'm talking to you about tonight in this 1 hour session, you can do for free. There are paid for versions of LinkedIn, and only really a couple of big reasons to upgrade. With a paid for account, you would get more search criteria if you were kind of doing lots of detailed searching and wanted deep level criteria about company sizes or how long people have been in their current role, perhaps. You would get some credits for being able to send messages, but there's ways around that. That's not enough reason to pay. A good reason to pay is that you get access to the online learning library of courses. I'm not sure if you perhaps have access to that as students through your library already. Perhaps Jane, you can confirm that for us when we get to the chat session. But LinkedIn has a huge online learning library of courses that are updated every week. I've written some courses in there. If you don't have access, I can make some of them free for you, so we can come back to that. There is one key feature that I do normally recommend to business professionals, but it's something to be aware of. It's a paid for feature that as a free user, you would be able to see probably the last 4 or 5 people who looked at your LinkedIn profile. On a paid for account, you would be able to see everyone that has a look at your profile. Depending on their privacy settings, some people like to keep that hidden. But for example, for me, I know that every 90 days is how the stat is done. About 1,000 people look at my LinkedIn profile. So I've appeared in searches, about 1,000 people look at my LinkedIn profile every 90 days. And if I know who they are, one, I can kind of go, I'm reaching the people I want to reach. My clients are seeing me, my prospects are seeing me, my network's seeing me, but I can also send messages. If I didn't have that information, I would kind of be working a bit blind. So I think there's a value in, if you're active on LinkedIn and you want to be kind of messaging people that are looking at you, finding you, could be opportunities in there. It's quite a good investment. Perhaps not something you will need right now, but it could be when you get into the workplace. A couple of slides before I kind of dive in to talking about your profiles. This one is really just something for you to remember. People do not keep their LinkedIn profiles current. I think I first did this session actually in your lecture theatres for SEMA members, for management accountants. And usually I would put this up in the room and ask anyone when they last changed their profile. And the answer is usually when I last changed jobs. You really should keep this as current as you can. You never know what the job market's going to do when you need contacts. So maybe just mentally put this in your diary, or literally put it in your diary. Is my LinkedIn profile up to date? I do it once a quarter because my business changes quite frequently. You might just want to do it once a year, but do keep it up to date. Because you want to a winner, actually, if you keep it up to date, because only about 51% of LinkedIn users, that's 700 million users, but only about half of them have even completed their profiles. Now, if you take the time to go through the steps I'm about to show you and complete your profile, the chances are you will come up in search results when someone's looking for you. People looking for future employees, looking for future partners, suppliers, contacts, use LinkedIn as a search tool. So if you can come up because they search for a specific skill, they may be searching for graduates of Harper Adams, things like that. You've got a much greater chance if you just fill in all the boxes. That's all we need to do, is fill in the boxes. So I can't do a hands up to say who's got a LinkedIn profile and who hasn't. So I'm just going to take you through some steps. If you haven't got one yet, just go to linkedin.com, sign up, and it will prompt you to go through these steps. If you do have one, log in, go to edit. So you can either do this when you're looking at your LinkedIn profile on the left-hand panel on the screen, where you literally see your own face, your photo. Click on it and you will go into edit mode. You know you're in edit mode because basically in the top right-hand corner of every section that you can change, there's a pencil. So go through, that's what we're going to do, is go through each of these sections and edit it and complete it. When you're logged in, LinkedIn will quite often say, you haven't added this section. Do you want to enhance your profile? So literally kind of follow LinkedIn's guide and make sure that you fill in these sections. But before you do, just before you dive in and edit things, and this applies to any social media platform that you're using, make sure that you understand your privacy settings. I've written a blog on this. This blog has got screenshots as well. I won't dwell on this one too much for you because you're probably kind of at an early stage of you using LinkedIn. But just make sure you know who you're sharing things with, who can see everything on your profile, that you've made everything on your profile visible, and what information people can access. My biggest one here when you're in the working world is, for example, on LinkedIn, you have 3 levels of connections. Jane and I are connected. We've met each other probably once a year for the last 3 or 4 years as I've done these sessions for you. We've connected on LinkedIn. We are first level connections. If you are connected to Jane, but not yet connected to me, we would be a second level connection. We're one step removed. If we had no one in common in the whole world of 700 million users on LinkedIn, we would be a third. And that's why you'll see lots of first, seconds, and thirds as you go around LinkedIn. That kind of tells you your level of connection to them. Now, Jane and I are first level connections, which means she will see what I'm doing in her feed. I would see what she's doing in her feed. But also potentially, Jane might be able to have a look at everyone that I'm connected to. Actually, she can't because I've switched it off. Not because of Jane, but because I don't want to be connected to, sometimes recruiters do this, sometimes competitors do this. They could go, I'm connected with Luan, and look, she's left me all of her clients, all of her prospects, all of her contacts. I'll have a good route through. I'm protecting myself by not laying that open, but with another hat on for some clients, you know, if I'm researching, it's a field day for me if they've left their contact book open, because I can find contacts and opportunities and prospects in there. So very much read this blog, understand what you're sharing and what you might not want to share, but what the opportunities are. And because this is a living tool, you can switch these things on and off all the time. While you're studying, that's probably not quite so relevant to you, but it could be in 2 or 3 years' time, you've got a big network, some good clients and connections. You don't want to leave that information for anyone to get hold of. So lots of little tweaks you can kind of do around LinkedIn, and hopefully that would be of value to you. But let's look at actually what you need to include on your profile. These are the key things. This is what LinkedIn will give you a tick for. This is what LinkedIn would then show you on your own profile that you would be an all-star. And it means that you've filled in these sections. It means that you've set up an industry. Now, this isn't visible to anyone, but industry is quite an important search criteria. You can search for people by their industry that they work in, but you can only pick one. So for me, I have to decide as a marketer, do I pick marketing and advertising as my industry? Or if I worked within the legal services, would I pick law as my industry? I can only pick one. If I'm searching for people and opportunities, I have to think about what industry they might have put themselves against. It's quite a key criteria if you're doing searches. The same as location, really, as well. People may be looking for a local supplier or a local contact, perhaps not in a virtual world, perhaps it's not so important. You can only have one location. Some people live or work in different areas. Probably as students, you're living somewhere different to, you know, term time and holiday time. I would advise to put your location where you want to be found for. So if you want to work in London after you graduate, put London as your location. If you want to work in a different country, put the country as your location, because very often people will search for that because they want someone nearby. Once we're allowed to go back and work in offices, that will probably become important again. The CV part, almost the jobs you've had or the jobs you've got, you probably won't have quite so much in there at the moment. But just make sure whatever you do have in there has a description. So even if you've got part-time jobs or you've done some work experience, don't just put the job title and the dates. Do give it a description so that people know what you did, what you were responsible for. And because you've got those words in there, if anyone is searching for specific skills or experiences, because you've got words in your profile, it will help you get found. If you don't give it any descriptions, the search algorithms have got nothing to help people find you for those things. Past positions, if you've got them, again, this is probably something to think about as you go through your career. Your education. So you're all studying. Do put your education on there. The further you are throughout your career, the less important it is, or less interest what modules you're studying or what key assignments that you're doing. But because you're in education right now and be looking for jobs in the future, I would list every module that you're doing, key assignments that you're doing, if you've got a dissertation topic, I would put all of that information onto your LinkedIn profile, because that is what people will be interested in talking to you about early on in your career. 5-10 years time, not so relevant, but you would have experience in the job section by then. And that's again when you kind of just make sure that you keep it fresh as you go through. There is a skills section on LinkedIn. I'll show you that in a second. You do need a photo on your LinkedIn profile, and please, a professional photo. We're not having nights out to take photos anymore, but please, not a holiday photo, not a night out photo, a professional photo of how your head and shoulders might look on Zoom, or if you were going for a job interview. And to get the All-Star ticket, it asks for at least 50 connections. If you're new to LinkedIn, you might be working on those, but that is what will get you this All-Star kind of status.
Just before we move on from this slide, just a couple of questions which are quite relevant.
Yeah.
The first one saying just one industry. So if you're a student, could you put the industry you're planning to join?
I would, yeah.
And then the second question is, how do you remove the connection level blocks? There have been moments where I've been unable to connect because I'm too far removed from the person I'm trying to connect with.
Okay, there's a little trick to this one. So sometimes people have their own settings so that they want you to have known their email address before they connect with you. There's nothing you can do to override that. When you are, I'm just seeing if I got a screenshot. I haven't. When you are looking at someone's LinkedIn profile, there will usually be a big blue button, and it will usually say follow, which is what mine does as a default, or it may say connect. What you can do, there will always be a more button next to it with 3 dots. Wherever you see 3 dots on LinkedIn, click it, because there's always a drop down menu. Click on the 3 dots, and there you would find connect or something like message or something else. So sometimes it's their settings, but just try those 3 dots to see if there's a way that you can send them a message. If you get really stuck on it, what I will say to you, you can always message me at any time. I'm always happy to kind of say, well, let's try it this way, or LinkedIn's just changed from maybe when I showed you something, so I can help you with that.
And thank you. Someone's just popped in as well. Would you put the grades which you've achieved in as well?
I would while you're studying. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, they're flying in now.
Oh, no,
is it worth being broad on industry? So I'm an engineering student. I want to go into manufacturing mainly. So which would I put?
I mean, the categories are quite broad anyway. They're not that niche. You probably just need to pick one. What I would probably do is pick one, have a look at your stats and see, are you getting found in search appearances? Are people looking at your profile? Then maybe try the other one and see if it actually makes a difference of people looking. Try and test it. But the categories are really quite broad anyway, so you won't kind of find really niche things. So hopefully you'll find something in there.
Well, thank you. That's all the questions.
Okay, no, good. Great. So, oh, where was I? So they're what I've just mentioned, the tick list. Let me just go back. Oh. These are the sections that you need to fill in, but some things that I want to highlight to you to make your profile stand out even more. If you were to do one thing to your LinkedIn profile, what I would always say is have a look at your headline, which is what sits underneath your photo. Again, you can change this at any time. Probably will get your industry question covered off in here. As a default, LinkedIn will take what you put as your last job title and company name in here. So most of the time when you're looking around LinkedIn, you would see account manager at XYZ, marketing manager at XYZ. But actually you can have about 120 characters in here. So why not use it as almost your little elevator pitch to tell people who you are, what you're doing. An example at the top, it's about a year or so old now, but Anna was a final year student last year at Nottingham Trent. So she quite clearly just put, I'm a marketing undergraduate. She was also working in the marketing team at the university, and she's seeking a graduate position. That's absolutely fine for you to do. She clearly knew exactly what she wanted, that she wanted to stay in marketing. You may not quite yet know, but you can change it around or do more things. So mine, I change around quite a lot. And I just use keywords really that I want to get found for. So when I did this screenshot, I said that I was a chartered marketer, I'm an author, a consultant, I'm an advisor for B2B and B2C, social media and content. You've got 120 characters here, so you can put in quite a lot. Think about what people might be searching for to find you. But also when you ever do searches on LinkedIn, you would literally get this list of job title at company name, job title at company name, job title at company name. If you put anything different in there that makes you stand out and people know who you are and what you're striving for next, you're more likely to get the click through onto your profile. A couple of small things here. You can see that we've both got head and shoulder shots on there. Anna hasn't got a branded background image, but I have on mine. I actually think I've changed it since then because we're not doing classroom teaching. But you can I've chosen a shot that kind of shows me in action. You could quite easily take a photo, you study in something that's of interest to you. That's an opportunity that you can change all the time as well. I mentioned skills earlier as a key section, and this is something that my advice on this section as skills is that you consider this to literally be a set of keywords, a set of words that people might put in that search box to find someone like you. When you type into this, it's a bit like Google. So if you're in IT and you start to type in IT, it will bring up lots of options. It does for marketing as well. Think about all those modules that you're doing and you're studying, and what you might like to do in your next jobs, and add those as skills to your profile. But also add all those other skills of great things that you're doing, like presentation skills, writing skills, team working, all those softer life skills as well, and just literally put them onto your profile, as this could be what a potential employer is looking for. I've got another trick to this section later, but just to highlight to you, you do need to fill this in, but think about those skills. Think about what is a recruiter going to type into that search box if they were looking to employ someone like you. So all those words from your module titles, keywords, topics that you're interested in, that's what you put on your LinkedIn profile, and make sure that you keep it fresh throughout your career as well. New skills may come in. You may decide that there's one area of what you do in your industry that you just don't want to do. For example, I started my career doing a lot of website work. I don't want to build websites anymore. I don't want to do it. So I don't include it as a skill because I don't want to be found for it. So it's always, a CV would say that I've done it. My LinkedIn profile is what I want to be found for next. Search. Think of it as, how do I get found? And then the other part of your LinkedIn profile that is really important, and it's not easy to write about yourself. I know that. It's always easier to kind of work with someone else on this. But once you've filled in all those sections of your LinkedIn profile, bring it up to the top and write your career story. Now, you may not have so much of a career story at this stage of your career right now, but think about it over time. Write what you have done, what you have studied, what you have enjoyed. This is more than the personal statement at the top of your CV or what you might have written on your UCAS application when you applied to university. This is you explaining what you want to do next or what you have studied. Mine, 20 years in, I've worked across a variety of sectors. This is what I offer right now. These are other things I'm involved with. I show my wider interests. But the really important thing about this section is that you tell people what you want to do next. So mine says, this is what I do, this is what I can support with. If you're looking for an event speaker or a freelance marketing consultant, get in touch. I tell people what I want them to do after they've started reading my LinkedIn profile. If it doesn't say that, it's just a CV and people will scroll on. I'm trying to use this as a development tool. It could be that I'm looking for a certain industry to work with. I could be running some research and want to talk to people. Just make sure that you tell people what you want them to do. So if you're looking for an enthusiastic graduate to join your team from July 2021, please get in touch. And that's again why you keep it active and up to date as well. I've got a quick example in here. You can see it in the slide deck afterwards. This is from a student. This is a LinkedIn example. So it's a Miami University student. But her example, you can see that she's got a great photo. She's just branded at the top by saying her area of study. That's what she's doing. And her about section says, I'm a recent graduate of Miami University's marketing program. I just moved to Illinois. I was previously employed as this. I'm passionate for brand design. I exhibit an entrepreneurial mentality, eager to learn. I'm seeking creative marketing opportunities in the Chicago area and would love to connect. So again, just kind of tell people what you want them to do when they've found you. If you're looking for your first job, you're looking for an internship or something else, this is really quite useful to have that story at the top of your profile. Have we got any more questions before I move on to kind of another section?
Just one general, just saying, I'm from Uruguay and my profile is in Spanish. Do you recommend to change the language?
I will send a link afterwards. There is a way to do this on LinkedIn with languages. I'll send the link with the slide deck. I don't come across it very often. I would say write it in the language of the country that you want to work in. So if you want to be working in the UK or in an English speaking country, then have it in English. But I do think there's a translate option now. So I'll find that link and send that over for you. Okay. So you know why you're using LinkedIn. You've written a great profile. Now we're on to networking. This is what we want to be doing. And my biggest tip to you when it comes to networking, so you're going to use this as a search tool as well to find people that you might want to connect with. My biggest tip is don't just click the buttons that you see on LinkedIn that say connect. When you are looking at someone's, I'll come back to that one. When you are looking at someone's profile on a desktop and you click connect, add a note. It could just be, hi Luan, watched your presentation this evening, would love to connect. Business people are getting lots of these all day, every day. And if people don't write a message, then they're kind of going to have to look at their profile, try and work out why they might want to connect with them. They haven't heard of them before. Just write a short note. You can also do this on a mobile. Again, 3 dots. I think if it's an Android device, it would be a downward arrow, but you do get this option to personalize the invite. I have a kind of a bit of a template here that I would use, and it's almost like just introduce myself, try and highlight something I've got in common with them because I've looked at their profile or content that I've seen on their profile. Basically just flatter people. I would say the easiest thing to do is just find a reason and flatter them. Say something like, hi Luan, I watched your webinar this evening, would love to connect. The big tip for you guys, search for people that did your course 2 or 3 years ago. Find them and say, hi, found your profile. I see that you did the same course as I'm studying right now. Just wondered what advice you would have for me in, if you were 3 years ago. Can you connect? Because people once they're in the workplace still have a really strong feeling about their university and want to help and reminisce, and they may have job opportunities or recommendations. So I would go straight for the alumni of your course. That's a great reason to connect. Say, I found you and it looks like you're doing really well since you graduated. People can't resist those kind of messages. But I would also advise you to just find people that you admire and send them a message to tell them. And don't be afraid to do that. I actually support a global business leader on LinkedIn every day, and she will respond to the messages if people have taken the time to say, hi, love the post that you did yesterday. You're really inspirational. I'd love to connect. You've flattered a little bit of their ego, but you've taken the time to send them a message and show that you've had a look at their profile. And do you know what? She gets people messaging going, I'm sure you're really busy, but I'd really love a chat with you. And she will, if people have made that effort for her, she will say, yes, how can I help? You know, so don't be afraid to do it, but just personalize that attempt so that people know that you've made a little bit of effort, because then they will kind of repay that interest that you've shown in them. They genuinely will. How are you going to find these people? Search. How are you going to know what they're doing? Well, because you'll see it in your newsfeed. When you connect with someone, that first, you will start to see, just as you do on other social media profiles, you'll start to see information on what they're doing in their newsfeed. You can like it, you can comment on it. But LinkedIn has also got far better at being focused on news and what's going on in the world. And you will see that in the top right-hand corner of your homepage. You have to click around a little bit to find it on a mobile, but you will now find news, which is great if you're writing assignments or you just need to know what's going on in the world and sound knowledgeable. Get it from LinkedIn. It's focused, unlike some other news sources that are out there. I would also recommend that you search and follow for something called the Daily Rundown. Just type Daily Rundown into the search bar, hit the blue follow button, and then literally in your notifications tab along the top of your profile on a desktop or the bottom on a phone, you will get the top business news of the day at about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock every day. This is so useful if you're writing assignments, if you're trying to have conversations with people going, oh, did you see this? Did you see what's going on in the world? You can stay really topical with just a couple of clicks to see what's happening. It's purely business focused, the top 4 or 5 business stories. I personally find it really quite useful. There could be things that I want to share, or just, that's where I can cut through so much news noise by using LinkedIn, as I said, for that kind of research and insights area. My final part is just to kind of really focus and tell you about the jobs area of LinkedIn. There is a great jobs area, literally, it's along the top, it says jobs. As you're writing your LinkedIn profile right now, I would use this job section. As you come to be looking for jobs, I would be using this job section. You can search, you can set alerts up in there. You can search it by keywords, you can search by location, you can search by whether it's part-time or full-time or remote working. Now, set it up, get alerts straight into your email inbox when there's any opportunities, but also spend some time reading job descriptions. One of the best advice that you see when you're applying for jobs, those covering letters or things like that, is to try and repeat back to people what they've put in their job descriptions. And I can bet you that most people writing job descriptions are probably looking and searching online for similar job descriptions so they can do another version. There's very little that's original. So have a look at some ideal job descriptions and start to use some of that terminology in the about section of your own profile. If I wanted to apply for this graduate program at Dyson, I would look in here and it says, things like the latest technology, or, I want to, I've got commercial acumen. I would use some of those words in my about section, because this is what people are looking for. And if they kind of go, oh yeah, that's what we're looking for, it's a winner straight away. And what you also see on job descriptions most of the time on LinkedIn is that they will have a skills section on there. So when I said earlier about having your skills as this set of words to help you get found, look at the skills that are listed on job descriptions right now. But you'll also very often literally see this section. And on this one, where it's ticked with blue, it means I've got that skill listed on my LinkedIn profile. The ones that aren't in blue yet don't appear on my LinkedIn profile. So this job advertiser would possibly look at my LinkedIn profile, because you can apply direct with LinkedIn now and say, she doesn't have all the skills that we need. If I wanted to apply for this job, I'd make sure those ones were all blue. I'm not going to lie, if I didn't have them, I wouldn't put it on there. But I might have just thought, do you know what? I hadn't thought about putting analytics as a skill on my profile, but yeah, I'm really good at it. So I can use all the job information to make my LinkedIn profile as relevant as I possibly can. Remember, 50% of people haven't even filled in their LinkedIn profile. If I can be super savvy and repeat all this information and, you know, tick those first levels of filtering through for job applications, then I've put the effort in, and that's going to help. So hopefully there's some tricks in there to help you write your profile if you're not quite sure what to put on there. The things I think you need to be doing right now, check those privacy settings first. It's always useful to understand what that is. Update your LinkedIn profile, go through those sections. Always focus on the future and what you want to be doing. Write it for your next employer. Write it for the next person that you want to partner with or understand more about. Use it to gather information, what people are doing, what they're sharing. They share a lot on LinkedIn, and it will save you having to go to every company website as well. Make connections. Connect with each other. Connect with your lecturers. Connect with your alumni as well. Make this a habit as you have all your guest speakers in, as you meet each other, as you go about what you're doing, and just make sure you connect with them. You never know when they're going to be useful, and that you could be useful to them as well. And just look for, I call it a conversation trigger. Anything that you can find to be able to say congratulations, or that's great, or just to get in front of people and be visible is what will make LinkedIn work for you. I've got a couple of resources for you. I do have a full written guide on how to write your LinkedIn profile. It's about a 12-page written document with screenshots on. You can download that from my website. I also have a blog with lots of other how-tos and tips, not just for LinkedIn, but for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook as well. Jane, I think you get this. I do a weekly Monday morning email newsletter to tell you what's changed in the world of social media. So if you want to receive that, you can sign up. And there's also a link there straight to LinkedIn. They've got a whole portal on their website for how to apply for jobs. They've got free online learning courses, interview best practices, role plays, templates you can use. So the resources are on LinkedIn, as well as your profile being really useful for you. And I've just got one more cartoon before we take questions. I know you all using other social media platforms. If you are looking for jobs, working in jobs, just make sure, people can search, and they will search for you. Please just don't put things online that you wouldn't want the person that sits next to you one day, or the person that's interviewing you, to see. If you do put that stuff online, just make sure it's a different email address to the one that you put on your CV, for starters, because those email addresses do pop up saying someone you know or is in your address book is on Instagram. If you want it to be private, do everything you can to keep it private. That's fine. But if you're searching for jobs, looking for jobs, just make sure that you are very aware of what you're putting online and who can see it and who can search for it. That's my slide deck. How have I done for time? 45 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah, just spot on with timing. Yeah. Always great. So thank you. I think I'm in one of the 50% that need to go and do some work to my profile, but and I'm sure I'm not the only one. We've got plenty of questions coming in, but just before we get to them, thank you for that. It was really interesting. I've made some really good notes, and for everyone watching, once I receive the slides, I'll email everyone who's attended tonight. I can send them all around directly to you as well. So straight into the questions. The first one we've got is, if you're not currently looking for a job, would you do anything differently?
Well, so you never know what the job situation is going to be, particularly in the world that we're in right now. So I would always be ready, because, and this is even if you're in a job right now, the thing that happens on any social media or any marketing actually is that people are very busy when they need work, and then when they've got work, they disappear again, and they have their head down and they're doing the work, and it's almost a bit of a yo-yo effect, which makes, when you need help or support, it makes it so much harder. if you can just kind of stay consistently visible, as and when you need it, your network's ready for you. And actually, it's more of a habit for you. It's not so much of a chore. I see it, it's a bit of a buzzword, I just see it as storytelling. I just see it as, if I show up once a week and just say, this is what I'm working on, if someone needs me right now, great. If they need me in 3 months' time, I've gone into their head and they'll keep watching me. So I wouldn't kind of, oh, you know, my business is doing really well, I'm going to be busy till June, I don't need to do anything. I don't know what's going to happen. The world could lock down as it did last March, or, you know, my biggest client could disappear tomorrow, and then I would, you know, I would need my network and I would need to be visible. So I think it's far better to just have it as part of what you do and just keep showing up and having conversations, because you never know what's going to happen in this world. And you know, the current situation is more than that, but you see it, yeah, people just yo-yo, they become really busy and then they disappear again and you've forgotten about them. So consistency is probably my key word for social media.
That's brilliant, thank you. I hope that answers your question as well. So Alistair is saying, you said that LinkedIn is a tool, but I still worry that people mistake joining LinkedIn for networking. Aside from joining and using LinkedIn, what does getting started with networking as a student involve?
So your network, your connections are going to be so important to you throughout your career. If you have a question, you need to ask someone. If you need advice, if you need, you know, I'm looking for who can recommend something, you know, it is your career, friends and family to a certain extent. You know, when you know, you need a speaker, Jane, you know, had flagged me in a tweet because she remembered me, you know, it came up in the conversation. It's about support that you need. And as I said, you know, my first client when I set up my business 10 years ago came from my manager on my placement year. I could have forgotten all of those people that I'd worked with over the years, and then actually I'd have had a really tough job setting up a business. Whereas, you know, never burn your bridges, always stay in touch, stay visible. You never know when you need that testimonial, that recommendation, or something like that. So, you know, it doesn't do any harm to have a good network, but you never know when you might need to call on them, or, you know, your peer group, you know, in 3 years' time, you might have a question, and who do you trust to go to that question? It's always someone you know or have a connection with versus a complete stranger.
Thank you. I'll just move over here. How do you get around having to specify so much if you're not sure where you want to work or what job to do?
Yeah, this is a real tough challenge of actually kind of choosing an area. The trouble is when people say they'll work for anyone or they'll work anywhere, they don't mind, it's almost, you're not going to target anyone. You're going to miss out on all opportunities because you're not being specific enough. People want to know you want to work in that industry. People want to know that you want to work in that kind of job. But you can change it. You know, if you were applying for jobs this month and it happened to all be quite similar, focus your profile on those kind of roles. And if you kind of go, actually, that's not quite right for me, I didn't enjoy those interviews, or actually I don't like that module anymore, just shift your profile. People won't know that you've changed your profile. Like I said, you know, if I decided tomorrow that I wanted to work in pharmaceuticals, I would write my LinkedIn profile to make me an expert in pharmaceuticals. I would put those words in, things like that. If I change my mind, I just change my profile. You know, it's a living document. The trouble is when you just say, I'm looking for any opportunity, is that you're not appealing to someone who wants that role. No, it's difficult to say that you could do lots of things, but just keep changing it, but trying to align it with what you're applying for.
Keeping it fresh, and
yeah,
you're the only one who's going to remember what was on there previously.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Someone's saying, do we only add university to education, or shall we include sixth form as well?
I would put sixth form, because I think at the moment your A levels are probably still relevant. You know, I've still got my sixth form on there. I haven't put my grades. they were good grades. But I put it on there because actually it's been a talking point sometimes. I met someone at a networking event. We connected on LinkedIn afterwards. And it turned out that we both went to the same sixth form college 20 years apart. And it was like, oh, I didn't realise you went there. So it's up to you. I have met some people who didn't like their school or didn't get good grades. You are in control of what you share with people. But I would say, if you got great grades or you've always studied the subject that you're studying now, why not put it on there?
When we were this question came in, we were on the news section, just asking what LinkedIn's like in terms of fake news.
The LinkedIn news, in terms of what goes in the daily rundown and what goes in the news and trending, is managed by a team of editors and humans. There is a team of editors in each country who manage what gets shown in that news. So it will, I haven't seen them put any fake news through. And it's very often related to kind of the workforce and what's going on. So it won't always be the top news. Today was that Ryanair ads had been banned, the jab and go ads. I don't know if you saw them, that and advertising standards, have banned them. So it's very relevant to the airline industry, marketing industry, and it's kind of been in the news, it's been proven. So yeah, you won't get speculation or things like that on LinkedIn.
That's brilliant. Next question is asking, how does connect compare to follow? And should I try to connect with companies rather than just people?
Yeah, so connect is a two-way thing. It's reciprocal. You connect with people, you follow companies, but you can also follow people. This is slightly confusing. So my default on my profile is follow, and that's basically a one-way thing. The reason that I have my default as follow is because I work for LinkedIn and I have online learning courses which are available to 700 million people. What they do at the end of a LinkedIn learning course says, if you'd like to connect with your instructor, click here. I do not want all of those people that watch my courses around the world in my newsfeed telling me what they're all doing every day, because that I don't need to see quite that much information. So I have follow, which means people can follow me and see what I'm doing, but I'm not reciprocating, so I'm not seeing what they're doing. So follow is one way, connecting is reciprocal. Sometimes it's a good idea to follow people, like you can follow Richard Branson. He's never going to accept your connection request. I shouldn't expect. You could follow the dragons from Dragon's Den, for example. They will have follow as their default, which means you can see everything they're doing, but they're not going to see what you're doing. But it's a great thing to sometimes follow people until suddenly they post something, and then you can do that. I loved what you posted today, and I'd really like to connect with you. Sometimes these people will connect with you, but for me the follow is more about gathering information and knowledge from these big personalities.
Yeah.
So,
I think this might be the same person asking in the chat and in the Q&A, because it's very similar, but just saying, what advice would you give to a marketing with business undergraduate wanting to go into the marketing business industry, and how do you get into industry?
You've got to show an interest in it. If you want to go into social media or digital, you need to be on social media. Maybe write a blog, show me that you're interested in it. Absolutely, I would follow a marketing professor called Mark Ritson. He writes for Marketing Week. He has his own courses. He's slightly controversial, but he's very honest about the industry and will be sharing advice. I would share those key people. But if you want to work in marketing, you've got to show it. You've got to show evidence. And if you're looking for a role, contact people and say that you want a job for them. See how they respond.
Yeah. And then the next question, slightly away from the main LinkedIn subject, but just asking, could you tell us a little bit more about your book?
My book? Do I have a copy? My book, I don't have one to hand. My book is called Relax, It's Only Social Media. It's 4 years ago since I published. It is an introduction to social media. So it's not a how-to book, but it's more about the basics of marketing that you need first. So you need to understand your audience, you need to understand what you want to communicate with them, how you want to create content for them. That's what my book's about. But I've probably got a lot more up-to-date blogs on my website. I'm currently rewriting my book, so later this year the next version should be out.
Oh, brilliant, thank you. Next question saying, you said to post and keep people up to date with what you're doing. As a student, I never feel like I have anything to post, or worried if I post something, it'll affect my profile in a bad way. Any tips on how to keep your profile alive as a student?
Yeah, so this could, I understand you've probably not got so much to talk about, and, it's harder right now. You could absolutely talk about this event and all your other guest speakers. That's happening weekly, isn't it? You can talk about those. If you are doing assignments or research and you have questionnaires, post about it, ask people to answer your questionnaires. If you read things, you watch TED Talks that you find interesting, post it. I'm currently studying this module and watched this TED Talk, found it really interesting, thought you might too. But probably what might be easier for you is to almost spend time commenting on what other people are doing. So when you comment on something, if you comment on my post, or if Jane's doing them, or Mark Ritson, people that you're connected to will see that. So you may find it easier at first to kind of get involved with other people's content than perhaps always starting afresh from your own. But, it could be, we're in a world right now, you and I talked about this before we start, write about your lockdown experiences, the student experience as in lockdown 3, write it. People want to see it. It will come up as interview questions we talked about in time. I did a blog last April on, how I'm adapting my business in coronavirus, and talked about, how I felt on lockdown, what happened to me, what I was doing differently, what had changed. I found it quite valuable, but also my clients found it valuable, and prospective clients kind of got to know you a bit more, Luan, because you were quite honest in how you felt about it and what you were doing. And that's really what we're doing in networking, is allowing people to get to know us.
Yeah. Making it more about
and if you're not sure and you want to do this, and I say this to all my clients, drop me a note. I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? And I'm always happy to comment. I did this with a client last night because we talked about, you're not sharing some stuff, as much as you could. I spotted something and I sent her a link and went, now go. This is what we were talking about. Do it. And she wrote back going, are you sure? And I was like, yes, do it now. And then she was like, I've done it, smiley face. So I know it's not always perhaps as easy as people that are doing this day in, day out. So if you just need to run that by someone, or that bit of reassurance, let me help.
Jane is saying in the chat that she recommends signing up for weekly emails if you're interested in marketing. So that goes back to the question earlier about getting involved with the industry. I'm sure that would really help. Also just saying, I exist more on Twitter. Can students link these together?
I wouldn't link them together, because you write for Twitter in a very different way. Well, not in a very different way, but it's different. Twitter has 280 characters. LinkedIn, you can have more. So you could write the same things. I don't know what you're writing on Twitter, but I wouldn't kind of do exactly the same on the two. But if you're already used to tweeting, then, just get used to being that active on LinkedIn as well.
Question, there's another question. So if you've got any more questions, everyone just, feel free to put them in. If you have a part-time student job and it appears at the top of your page, can you move it down as it's more basic skills and perhaps not primarily what you're wanting to promote?
Yes. So in the experience section, I've got multiple roles that are kind of ongoing at the moment, because I have volunteer roles and charity roles, as well as kind of my current role. Get the dates right. But yes, when you're in edit mode in that section, you'll see, I think you see down the right hand side, like a little burger, the 3 lines. You should be able to drag and drop them. So yeah, I would put, you can move them around.
You can really kind of personalize it.
Yeah.
Make it really, really quite personal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where should trusteeships come when talking about experience?
Yeah, so you could put that as in your experience section and just make sure it's clear that you're a trustee. You know, I until recently was a trustee, so that was a role, and you know, kind of brackets trustee. So you can put it in the experience section, but there is also a section for volunteering, for projects, for organisations. It's actually the slide I missed out, but it will be in the slide deck. If you go to the top of the profile, it will one of the sections you can add is called accomplishments, and in there it will say volunteering. It also says organisations you support. So if you're involved in professional memberships or local organisations, you support charities, you do marathon running, anything like that, put all of that on your profile as well.
Well, that's good, because I need to. I really do need to update.
Put it all on there, and you know, and don't be afraid to. You know, it feels like it might be a bit formal, but don't be afraid to have a personality online as well. You know, I've met finance directors who are in 80s rock bands in the evening. I've met people that, you know, have different hobbies, or, you know, marathon run and have raised millions for it. Don't be afraid to tell people about you, because again, you know, we do business with people. There are lots of people that all do what we do. People are generally interested. So if there is something that you're passionate about, involved with, you support, you're an advocate of, put it in there. You know, by day I'm currently studying, by night I'm doing this. That's absolutely great stuff to put on there.
That's well. Thank you. We seem to have answered everyone's questions, which is
Brilliant.
covered all sorts. So unless anyone has anything final, I'd just like to thank you again, Luan, for giving up your time again to speak to us. It's been truly, you know, it's been really interesting. And you know, when I was trying to come up with topics for Harper Forum, this was not one which I thought of at all. So thank you, Jane, as well, for introduction. So what I'll do now is this like processes itself now, and then I'll get it uploaded to our YouTube channel tomorrow. I'll send you the link so you've got it yourself, and I'll also post it on our social media channels over the weekend, so all of you watching can view it as well. I believe you're also going to send around the slides, so I'll email those out to everyone as well. Jane and Alistair, you know, if this is of interest to students at all, you know, feel free to send it around to anyone of interest, because I think it's something which is really beneficial, and especially students looking for placements and graduate positions, even if they're just, you know, in their first year and wanting to make a start on their profile. I think it's something which can really benefit everyone. So thank you for your time this evening, and yeah, I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, thanks everyone, take care.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.